In this episode, we talk about why you should buy more clothes. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps. Big Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps, Big Changes, where I share simple strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Gregg Clunis, and in this episode, we are looking at a very little known sort of benefit, I guess, to buying more clothes, to getting your hair done, getting your nails done, and just in general, sort of spending more money on your appearance. Now, before we jump into this episode, I want to do two things really quickly. First of all, I want to remind you to take the survey. We've only got a few days left. I will be doing the drawing. It's completely random. I'm doing it on the first day of February, so February 1st, and I'll be contacting the winners. So if you want a chance to win one of three $50 Amazon gift cards, head over to www.tinyleaps.fm/survey and take the survey. When you do, you'll be entered for the $50 gift card giveaway. So that's the first thing. And the second is related to this episode, right? So I want to give a big warning here. I am not in any way promoting a shopping addiction. I'm not giving you a reason to spend more of your money. I'm simply sharing a benefit of prioritizing your appearance and what that can do for you. Now, you can do with that whatever you want, but just know that if you have a legitimate issue with spending money, if you have a legitimate issue with shopping too much, or if things like it just doesn't work for your budget, then you shouldn't do it, right? You know more about your life than I ever could, so don't take this as advice. I'm just sort of sharing information. Now, with all of that said, why should you buy more clothes? Why should you get that haircut? Why should you get your nails done? It all has to do with self-esteem. Because the truth is, when you look good and you know that you look good, you end up feeling good too. Right? It helps internally, similar to how there is sort of a mind-body connection, right? Where something happening to your body can affect your mind, and something happening in your mind can affect your body. You know, if you're very sad, that's an emotional thing, but sometimes you can feel physical pain. And similarly, if you have a stomach ache, sometimes you can create all of these other symptoms that you don't actually have, but your mind just creates it because it's connected to the body. So there is this mind-body connection, and this actually holds true when we're talking about how we feel as well. So simply put, self-esteem allows us to feel better, right? We feel good about ourselves. We feel like we're protected. And I'm going to get into two articles here in a second that sort of talk about this in more depth. That self-esteem from looking better helps us to feel better. And by feeling better, we're actually set up to gain the benefits of having more confidence, of being more willing to take risks, and of just in general being happier. You should shop more. You should prioritize self-care. You should give yourself or find a way to get that mani-pedi, because getting your hair done, wearing those heels that are just to die for, having the clothes that you feel amazing in and being able to wear them out, that stuff increases your self-esteem. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to look at two separate articles in this episode. And each of them sort of talk about this concept, right? This idea that self-esteem affects so many other areas of our lives. We're going to be looking at the connections that an increase of self-esteem can have in our lives. But I just want to really drive this point home. I'm not saying you should go spend all your money on clothes. Do not do that. I'm saying that if you're like me, and a big part of why I started this episode in the first place is because I am historically not the person that cares, right? I get my hair cut maybe once a month. I really should be going every 2 weeks. I don't typically prioritize self-care things. I'm the person who wears shoes until there's a hole in the bottom. I wear jeans even when there are holes in the bottom. And that's largely out of laziness, largely out of an unwillingness to spend the money, largely out of a number of factors. But it was crossing my mind the other night because lately I've been also dealing with some depression and dealing with additional anxiety and stress and things that everyone goes through. But last night, as I was getting ready for bed, I just realized, you know what? Like, if I got a haircut, I would feel so much better about myself, right? Things wouldn't be affecting me as much as they are. And that connection instantly made sense to me. So if you're like me, where you put all of these things off for whatever your reason, you should prioritize it more. That's the ultimate takeaway of this episode. So let's get into the first article on this topic, which is from thetempest.com. It's titled, "Here's Why When You Look Good, You Feel Good." And I'm pulling one section out of it that we're then going to discuss afterwards. Quote, "It's a fact that increasing self-esteem does more than just increase your confidence, improving what psychologists have termed emotional immunity. Have you ever stewed over a rejection or negative comment and wondered how, for others, it doesn't affect them at all? The secret is a good emotional immune system. Good emotional immunity also means that you can be more resilient to anxiety and stress, meaning that you can actually impact your physical immune system as well. Further, taking the time to pick out an outfit that makes you feel confident, applying makeup, and contributing to your daily hygiene are all methods of self-care that are often understated. Self-care isn't always a spa day or a fantastic bath bomb. It can be something as regular as taking the time to brush and style the hair the way you want or wearing a fragrance that you find calming." End quote. So what we are essentially looking at here, right, is that self-esteem is starting to be looked at as an emotional immune system, right? It allows us to fight off all of the things that could come in and damage us emotionally, similar to how the regular immune system helps fight off all of the bacteria and viruses and things like that that could damage our bodies physically. Having a high sense of self-esteem allows us to bat away things, allows us to not take things so personally. It allows us to not have things eat at us all day long. And that also increases over time our ability to deal with stress, anxiety, our overall confidence. It allows us to go for more of what we actually want in life instead of just settling for the things we don't want or the things we're not as happy with. Having a high sense of self-esteem allows us to really prioritize ourselves and prioritize the people around us. And again, by just improving the way we dress, by just prioritizing that haircut, by just buying new clothes before the hole gets added to it, we can actually boost our self-esteem in that moment and for a period of time afterwards. Now, when we get back, we're going to look at the second article, which comes from Psychology Today. And this one's super interesting because it talks about how self-esteem can actually fade from hour to hour. So this one's going to be super interesting to dive into. Make sure you stick around for that. How would you feel if you saved an extra $1,500 this year without lifting a finger? That's exactly what Empower can help you do. It's really difficult to save as much money as we need to because as soon as we get extra money, it gets spent. We do the best we can with our budgets and apps to track spending, but somehow it just still doesn't work. Well, there's an app for that. It's called Empower. That's EMPOWER. It's an awesome mobile app that makes saving and managing your money the easiest thing that you'll do all day. For starters, Empower has an automated savings feature. You simply tell the app your weekly savings target, and every day, Empower studies your income and spending and automatically knows when to move the right amount of money into your savings account, where you're less likely to spend it. It's called autosave. Just set it and forget it. And now you can stop Googling for answers to all of your finance questions. You can just text Empower's human coaches who give you personalized recommendations, and they're on standby to steer you through whatever financial challenge might come up in your life. If you want to save $1,500 more this year, you've got to check out the Empower app. Download Empower, that's EMPOWER, in the App Store or Play Store. Over 650,000 other people already have. And if you start today, listeners of this show actually have a special offer. You can get $5 for free, $5 when you use the offer code TINYLEAPS and to reach your savings goal. So to claim that $5 offer, head over to empower.me/tinyleaps and use the offer code TINYLEAPS. All right, we're back and we're talking about how self-esteem helps us in our day-to-day lives and why dressing better and actually prioritizing spending more money on the way we dress, spending more money on our haircuts, on our nails, on whatever self-care things we are trying to do can actually improve our self-esteem. Now, in the second article we're about to look at, it's from Psychology Today, and it talks all about self-esteem as an emotional immune system. So let's jump into that. Quote, although experts are still debating what self-esteem actually is, defining such constructs is always tricky in psychology research, we do know quite a bit about what it does. In terms of its general behavior, our self-esteem fluctuates from day to day and sometimes from hour to hour, much as our physical immune system does. When we're having a good self-esteem day, we not only feel different about ourselves, but we respond differently to stresses from our environment. Specifically, having low self-esteem renders us more vulnerable to many of the psychological injuries we sustain in daily life. For example, brain scans have shown that people with low self-esteem experience rejection as more painful than people with high self-esteem do, and they withdraw further from others as a result. People with low self-esteem are also more vulnerable to failure in that they experience greater drops in motivation and show less persistence after failing than those with higher self-esteem. Having low self-esteem also makes us more vulnerable to anxiety and stress. People with low self-esteem release more cortisol into their bloodstream when they experience stress, and it stays there for longer periods than people with higher self-esteem. End quote. Now, just as a quick reminder, if you are interested in either of the two articles that I've quoted in this episode, the links are in the description of this episode. I highly recommend you go and read the full things. But to summarize that last one, self-esteem as an emotional immune system, its job is to protect us from psychological injury. It's to protect us from emotional injury. All of the little things that happen throughout the day, all of the failures, all of the rejections, all of the stern talkings to the people that are disappointed, the people that are upset, the people you may have let down. Having a high sense of self-esteem will allow you to deal with those things better. In addition to which, because self-esteem is so directly tied to motivation and stick-to-itiveness, having a high sense of self-esteem will also allow you to keep going longer, to keep trying over and over and over again, no matter how many mistakes or failures you run into. And all of this from just having a high sense of self-esteem. Now, how do you do that? Well, like I've been saying throughout this whole episode, sometimes, and it's not all the time, sometimes it's as simple as combing your hair, painting your nails, buying that sweater, buying those shoes, wearing something that feels amazing on you, something that you put on and you know, I'm the shit. Sometimes improving your self-esteem comes from improving your physical appearance, working on your body, going to the gym, eating better, losing weight, putting on clothes that make you feel amazing, putting on lipstick, getting your nails done, getting your hair done, any number of self-care tasks that have to do with an immediate improvement in your appearance can have an immediate improvement in your self-esteem. And as we've covered, self-esteem ultimately is one of the biggest tools to improving your ability to improve your life. So I hope this episode was helpful. It's a super interesting topic and a super interesting conversation. I do want to remind everybody, though, that this episode is not meant to be advocating for spending money that you don't have. You should not put these clothes on your credit card if you don't have the money to pay off that credit card. Don't put yourself in a bad financial position. But if you are like me and you typically don't prioritize the things that maybe do cost money but allow you to improve your appearance and how you feel about yourself, because ultimately that's what matters. It's not really about the appearance. It's just how do you feel about yourself? If you typically don't prioritize those things, then you should start. Thank you so much for tuning in. Listen, do me a favor and check out the Empower app. I'm super appreciative of them for sponsoring this episode. Just head over to empower.me/tinyleaps. That's empower.me/tinyleaps to get $5 on your savings account, and also to potentially save an additional $1,500 this year, which is massive. Head over to empower.me/tinyleaps. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to click subscribe wherever you are listening to this or watching this. If you've joined us over on YouTube, I've been Gregg Clunis, and remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.